We're getting mixed signals out of the stock market. We have warnings against people trying to take down these drones. We have a lot of other economic financial news to get into. Amazon worker strike looks like it just took a turn for the worse. Updates on rental costs, the housing market, housing bubble, and a lot more. Please make sure you're subscribed. Let's go ahead and get right into it, folks. Starting right here, the Dow Jones 7-day losing streak. Actually, the longest losing streak since 2018, folks. That's 6 years. But we're seeing mixed signals because we have the NASDAQ reached an all-time high today. Record high. And we're waiting for a Fed rate cut decision here. In just a couple of days, we're going to hear about that. Will it be a rate cut? I think so, because I think if they don't do it at this point, because they've talked about it for so long, if they don't do the rate cut, that could send a very bearish and negative signal to the markets. So I think there'll still be a rate cut, but I think they're going to be stopping after this. We'll have to see what happens with the jobs numbers, everything else, all the other data that's going to come out that they're going to base the rate cut decision or the decision not to cut on. Anyways, mixed signals out of the markets. Again, I'm being very cautious here. I like to remind people of that. Somebody in comments on this channel called me a perma bear. And what they did is they looked back at my videos and they looked at all the headlines, right? Sometimes I'll put out headlines of quotes that other people say. Sometimes I'll put out different stories in the headline, prepare for whatever, right? In this case, I say prepare for markets to continue to go higher unless we get some sort of black swan rug pull. They're going to keep pumping these markets higher. They're going to keep the banks operational to induce more inflation, because without inflation, the illusion of economic growth vanishes. So they have to keep doing that, folks. Anyone that's a perma bear is going to be wrong 99.9% of the time, because you only see a big correction or crash once every 10, 12 years. And if it's like the crash we saw in 2020, which really didn't end up being a crash, it was a minor correction, they're just going to pump it up to new all-time highs with record amounts of money creation being thrown at the problem. So anyone that's a perma bear, I think they're definitely missing out, even insane, because if you look at the markets, they always recover. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones, even after the big, not so big correction here recently. Now, let's go ahead and look, starting off at a 1-month chart, just to show you the magnitude of the correction that started in early December here. We're down from about 45,000 to 43,717. Again, the biggest losing streak since 2018. We're going on about 2 weeks now for this. But even with that, folks, let's go to a long-term chart. And what do you see? The corrections or pullbacks. Let's look at a 5-year chart. The corrections and pullbacks always get bought up, always to new all-time highs, right? You've got to recognize this. If you're a perma bear, you're wrong, again, 99% of the time, because the markets usually recover and go higher, even with the sell-offs or dips. But the thing is, if every 10 or 12 years, when it does happen, when the collapse happens, if you're all in, if you don't have any cash and you're 100% invested, you're going to lose a lot of your portfolio. So if you don't have some cash on the side, you're not going to be able to buy the dip or buy the crash. Whenever every 10 or 12 years you see the crash, you won't have anything to invest. Every time there's been a major dip in the stock market or a crash, I've luckily had some funds available to buy some stocks, to buy up some assets, and that's the strategy for me. I'm not saying you should follow my strategy. It's working okay for me. Could I have done better? Sure. Could I have done worse? Of course. But this has worked for me. Everybody's got their own strategy, their own investment. But to say I'm a perma bear, that would be insane. I'm not a perma bear. They can pump this market up to new all-time highs at the click of a mouse. And once you know that, you're no longer going to be a perma bear, because you know how easy it is to pump up these markets. And to further prove my point, one of the catchphrases on this channel for as long as I've been doing videos, which is what, 5 years now, 6 years? I don't know exactly how long, at least 5 years. One of the catchphrases has been ride the bull, prepare for the bear. Right? Not ride the bear, prepare for the bull. Ride the bull. In other words, the market's going to go up in most cases, but prepare for that downturn. And if we weren't in the place we're at now with the PE ratios near the highest of all time, The only thing worse was before the dot-com bust. Housing bubble, way worse than 2008. The unaffordability is at all-time worst levels. If it weren't for all these things being so overvalued, the markets being so overvalued, I wouldn't even be cautious right now. I'd be 80, 90% in as far as cash. Now, I'm about maybe 10 to 15% in because we're due, folks. We're due for something big. We see what's on the horizon. We see all the threats out there from foreign and domestic. Speaking of domestic, why do we have things in the sky, lights in the sky, that no one can explain? We spend all this money for national defense, which mostly goes to other countries, by the way. But supposedly, it's for national defense. A big portion of the national debt, 36-something trillion, went towards defense, but we don't even know what these drones are. And look at some of the headlines out here. Drone updates. Authorities warn people about taking matters into their own hands. So we have people, now in California, they cited some in Temecula. People are pointing lasers and even shooting at the drones in different parts of the country. Authorities in New Jersey are warning the public about dangerously taking drone matters into their own hands, as residents and lawmakers continue to demand answers about another slew of sightings. Now, people wouldn't feel the need to take this into their own hands if we were just told what these are. Again, with the trillions of dollars we've spent on quote-unquote defense, why wouldn't we know what type of drones these are? The bottom line is, I think they do know. Quote, we're also concerned people will take matters into their own hands and fire a weapon at the aircraft. Well, there are already reports of people doing that. I didn't say if they hit them or not. Not only is this act against the law, it poses an incredible danger to the pilots and passengers of those aircraft. So are they drones or are they manned aircraft? That's the thing. We're not being told that. But we do know that a lot of the ones that we used thermal imaging on to see what they really were actually aircrafts when people thought they were mysterious lights and drones. So it's weird that this is coming out, that people are mistaking aircraft for drones. But there are some unexplained lighting patterns and stuff like that definitely, it's not airplanes. Could it be someone out there manipulating it with AI and special effects? Absolutely. I mean, I'm not even concerned about this at all. In fact, I'm way more concerned about officials printing money than I am some lights in the sky. Even if they were from another planet, I would still be more concerned about the officials printing money. I would welcome the outer space beings more than I would welcome the people that actually run this economy. If you know what I mean? Recent article out today, why some concerned shoppers are stockpiling goods. What do people see and what are they preparing for? It feels like March 2020, the beginning of the health crisis. People started stocking up essential goods and toilet paper and pet food. What about human food? Okay, you got to look out for the pets though. Everyone changed their mind recently after the recent selection. People are stacking up more now in canned goods, bottled water, and yes, lots of rolls of toilet paper. It's happening again. So I'm not the only one, folks. This is a article just out recently. And I've said here that I think we're overdue for something big. Health crisis 2.0. Drones turned into lasers now, shooting down at cities. I mean, what's next? I mean, what's going to happen, folks? It's going to be some sort of scare that's going to scare the markets. The big money, the hedge funds, the billionaires that own about 90% of all stocks, they will sell off, and all the little guys that weren't ready for it will get hurt, and people will panic and get out of the markets, and then the billionaires will come in at the lower price levels and buy in and buy up all those shares that the middle class, working class dumped because they were scared, and more wealth will be transferred to the billionaires. Is what I think is going to happen on the next downturn. Just like every other downturn previously, every economic downturn, crash, correction, market decline, we see the very wealthy get what? Wealthier? Or more wealthy or less wealthy? I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. The billionaires. Every time they get more wealthy, every time there's a correction of 10% or more, the wealthy end up raking it in, and the little guy ends up getting hurt. It's just the way it is, folks. Continuing here, Unlike the onset of the pandemic, people were stockpiling food, but part of it is they'll believe they'll cost more under the new administration. So one, people are concerned about something big happening, the threats, now the drones, the war situation, World War III knocking on the doorstep possibly, but also inflation, more fears of inflation and shortages. We'll see how it plays out, folks, but this is what people are doing. Are you doing any of that? Are you stockpiling? Do you see any sense of danger or the need to stockpile goods? On another article here out of the Sun, Americans are over Christmas traditions. They want to swap traditional turkey for takeout. Well, that's because less people have families, right? When you have a family, you want to do the traditional thing. You want to have turkey, you want to have cranberry, you want to have stuffing, all that holiday stuff. Pie, you want to have apple pie. Even more so for the holidays, pumpkin pie. But now, less people are having kids. Less people want to have the financial burden of kids. And we see a big spike in people getting fixed, meaning permanently fixed to no longer be able to have kids. Why is that? Because people are scared of the cost of living. People in their 20s and 30s are like, no way. They're in debt themselves. So if you're in debt just by yourself, how are you going to afford a family? Right? Unless you get married and you have two incomes because your partner's working and you have no kids, maybe that'll get you ahead. But for the most part, having a family is going to cost you, folks. And more people are realizing that. So, of course, you're going to see articles like this. This is a real article. The Sun U.S. More Americans are over Christmas traditions. They want to order takeout. So maybe Chipotle Christmas dinner, something like that. Anyways, you guys know the trajectory it's on, folks. Less people starting families. They are scared. People are freaked out. A couple other ones here. 90-hour-a-week Wall Street bankers. They're snorting lines of Adderall at their desks. Can you believe this? First of all, if I was working 90 hours a week, I wouldn't be working there that long. 40 hours is stressful enough. 90 hours a week. If you have to snort something at your desk to keep working, you might probably time to quit the job. Is it just me? Do you agree? Am I wrong? If you have to snort stuff at your desk to keep working, time to move on for a better job. Unless you're going to be a millionaire maybe after a year, then you can retire. Then it may be worth it. But otherwise, it looks kind of risky. The ADHA medications can last as long as 22 hours, as exhausted staff use them to stay awake while working through the night. Young Wall Street bankers working 90 hours a week are snorting lines of Adderall at their desks. Now, first of all, how does this news even get out? Right? Are they having a survey? They're asking people, hey, by the way, do you snort at your desk? We surveyed 2,000 people and asked them if they were snorting stuff at their desk. And half of them said yes. What is this? This is a survey? In 22 hours. So if you're working 90 hours a week, 5 days a week, how many hours is that a day? All right, let's just do some quick math. 18 hours a day? I'll try it again here. If you're working a 5-day week, you're talking about 18 hours a day, folks. I'm not even sure if I believe that. But if people are working that much, they probably do need to get some assistance more than just caffeine. Anyways, thought that was an interesting headline. Other news, the Journal, Wall Street Journal, New Zealand's economy expected to recover, supported by aggressive rate cuts. You know what this is about, right? More rate cuts, more people spending money, more people can get loans, qualify for purchases, and that's going to be chalked up as economic growth, just like, was it the last report? Or was it 2 reports ago where we talked about the GDP numbers over the past 5 years, unprecedented, but only because the debt accumulation and inflation was unprecedented. In other words, spending and borrowing and spending and inflation is looked at as economic growth. Here's another example. New Zealand's economy expected to recover, supported by rate cuts. And of course, rate cuts, they make it easier to borrow more money. New Zealand government said it expects the economy to exit years of recession by early 2025, supported by a significant reduction in interest rates. Okay, so if that was the solution, if rate cuts were the solution, why not cut rates to zero? Then why not go negative? If that was the solution, if lower rates are always going to fix things, why not just do it? Why not go negative interest rates? Because they know that it's going to be so much inflation that everybody's going to freak out and wonder what's going on and how these people, why these people keep cutting rates. Realtor.com rents declined There you go, bears. You finally are right. But rents declined 1.1% year over year. It's been happening now. This is the 17th month in a row. But we're still only down 1.1%. So these are tiny, tiny price drops. Sorry, 16th consecutive month. Despite this decline, affordability remains challenging for minimum wage workers in most U.S. metros. In 44 of the top 50 metros, workers need to work extended hours to afford typical rents in most metros. And you wonder why people are working 90 hours a week, sniffing stuff at their desk. That's why. More attempts to keep the housing bubble inflated. Here in California, if home prices weren't high enough, look what they're doing in Los Angeles. Los Angeles County announces $2 billion medical debt relief program. Why do I say that? Because the more debt you erase, the more people can maybe have a down payment for a home, or maybe can continue to pay their rent. We also see another report, debt forgiveness out of Connecticut. Thousands will see medical debt relief. Right? So is the economy really that good? Is everybody that rich? Then why do we see all these debt relief programs, real estate down payment assistance programs, all these ways to help people kind of keep their head above water? FDIC finds more problem banks. The number of problem banks is at a 3-year high. And can FDIC cover all these depositors? No. Look at what happened in 2023. They had to come in and basically create the money or borrow the money or just add it to the debt, whichever way you want to look at it, to reimburse the depositors. The FDIC wasn't able to cover it. But we're supposed to trust the FDIC to tell us that there's problem banks. Yes, there's problem banks, but they're just going to get continued funds thrown at them if there ends up being any problem or a run on the banks, things like that. Article continues here. The overall number of banks, 68 as the end of the third quarter, up 2 banks from the second quarter. This is a multi-year high according to FDIC. The problem banks are, quote, those institutions with financial, operational, or managerial weaknesses that threaten their continued financial viability, unquote. What kind of nonsense is that? Listen to this. Try to make out what this means. Quote, those institutions with financial, operation, or managerial weaknesses that threaten their continued financial viability, unquote. Operational weaknesses, managerial weaknesses. Not the fact that they're loaning out too money. They're saying it's managerial. Total assets held by problem banks totaled $3.9 billion. Now, it rose by $3.9 billion. It's now $88 billion. As of the third quarter, problem banks represent 1.5% of total banks. Interesting. So if they can just come in and just reimburse all of the depositors just by borrowing money on the open-ended credit card, why are we even worried about bank failures? Well, that's because they're going to let a few of them fail to then allow themselves or to give themselves an excuse to come in with more hands-on approach to the banking system, to the economy. What might be termed as the creep upward in the tally, tables included in the reporting indicated that the number of problem institutions was 52 in 2023, 39 in 2022, and so forth. So it's increasing. But then again, folks, they could just create the money. So it's not something I would be concerned about. In fact, you might be safer with your money in the bank now versus in the mattress, because it looks like they're just going to keep the banks propped up no matter what. Even if there's no money in the vaults, they're just going to create it and come in and give the banks the money if something bad happens. You see what I'm saying here? So how could you really be a bear in this situation? And why would anybody that's running the economy want a bunch of banks to fail under their watch? They're probably just going to get bought up by bigger banks, or there'll be consolidation, and they'll just get a bunch of money thrown at them from money that's borrowed and conjured into thin air. So, folks, what do you think about all this? Is there a big something ready to drop? Got the things in the sky. We've got just timing every 10 or 12 years, something big drops. So be careful, but still make money. And in the next report, we're going to talk about more of the making money side of things and some other good news I want to get into. But I've got to do a little bit more research. That's why I didn't fit it into this report. But I hope you do come back. Make sure you're subscribed. Economic, financial news, and a lot more. Everybody keep stacking. Bye for now. Peace.